Hi everybody, this is Mark from We Talk Art. I am going to go do something hard. Hard for me anyway. Art hard. What, you may ask? Why? Well, we're going to get into that, so let's roll the intro and we'll talk about it. So what is this hard thing that I'm going to do? Well, it's a life drawing session at a local art space. And I honestly have not done it in a long time. And so I'm kind of looking forward to getting back into it because I think it's a pretty helpful exercise. I personally am not someone who strives to want to draw people necessarily. I just see that people are extremely hard to draw. And if I can master that, I feel I can draw almost anything. So what is life drawing? Life drawing is usually drawing from a live person, usually traditionally in the nude, but sometimes it's semi-clothed. Occasionally it might be costumed, and it is from personal observation. You actually be in there. And it's done in a series of poses that start with short poses, sometimes as short as 30 seconds, and getting into longer poses that might go 10 or 20 minutes, depending on who's running the sessions. For the record, I think drawing people is so much harder than drawing anything else, because if I go draw a tree or a cat or a mountain, you're not going to know exactly what it looks like. I can draw it relatively accurate or even completely inaccurate, and you wouldn't know the difference unless it was a specific mountain. Like if I was drawing Half Dome and I drew that very inaccurately, it would be obvious. But even, if I didn't get all the things in the right spot in Half Dome, you might not know unless you're expert in Half Dome or had climbed it or something. So people are hard. And even if I draw someone who you don't know, you will still know that I drew them wrong, usually. So again, it's a great place to perfect your talents. Not that my talents are close to perfection, but anyway, it's my way of getting better. So to be clear, I suck at drawing people. I'm horrible at it, even though I've done some life drawing in the past and so forth. But my goal is to get better at that so that I get better at other types of drawing. I personally believe that drawing the human body is one of the toughest things, or human form and people, faces, is one of the toughest things that you can do as an artist, because I think us as humans, we are very, we intimately know what a human should look like. And so any variation, mistakes, proportions are very obvious to the eye. And so it requires a high level of detail to get a human correct, unless you're going to characterize them. And then if you're going to characterize them, then you're making things intentionally beyond normal proportions and so forth. So if it's done with intent, it looks obvious. But the closer you try to do to get a human to look like a human, the harder it gets. And so I feel like if I can master that, that's going to help me in other places. Furthermore, in my normal drawing, I encounter times where I want to draw people, and I will draw them poorly, and that will pull down my entire drawing. So again, I want to get better at it. And I think that one of the major ways of doing that is to keep doing it. So I'm going to go to life drawing, and when I get back, I'll let you know what I learned. Okay, I'm back from my life drawing session. It was a good session, had a great time. There was about 6 of us. It was a really nice group. I even knew one of the people. I did not improve my ability to do the human form in the years that I have not been doing it, but I did make the effort. The model was wonderful. She took suggestions. She posed primarily in the nude, although a little bit of clothing. And overall, the space was nice. They had good lights, and they had seats for us and so forth. So it was a good session. They set up the session with 5 1-minute poses, 3 2-minute poses, 2 5-minute poses, 3 10-minute poses, and 2 15-minute poses. So it kind of progresses and gets longer and longer, giving you more time to work out your drawing. Different groups are going to do that differently, and even this group was talking about changing it up. So That can change depending on the groups. For me, the shorter sessions, the little 1 minute or 2 minute poses, you really only have time to get the basic lines. They call it a gestural drawing. So you're trying to just get the form down, the shape of the model. And no detail, no shadow work. It's just and usually you'll do light and then you'll work darker and darker and try to refine that in that short amount of time. And it is shockingly short when you're trying to do something that you're not good at least for me. These short minute poses are important because those gestural drawings, when you get to the longer poses, you really have to get those gestural drawings down. Otherwise, you're not going to get the longer poses right. One of the guys made a comment that the longer poses just give you more time to screw it up. And to some degree, it's right, but it's all in getting that first gestural drawing down, getting that, making sure that that looks right, and then refining that either with darker line work or erasing and replacing. But in these kind of situations, your main goal is to work fast. So you generally aren't erasing until you might get to the longer ones. So starting light, working up to darker, more defined lines is kind of the way to do it. Different people choose different ways to approach this. I usually start with the head and then I use just some center lines for the different parts of the body. Some people will block it out with shapes. If you look online, different people have different approaches to what shapes that they use to define the different parts of the body. I typically just use those center lines and then try to work it out, especially for the fast gestural drawings. One of the reasons I start with the head is a lot of people will use what is kind of a standard unit of measurement. It's kind of defined in Betty Edwards' Drawing from the Right Side of the Brain or other books where they talk about you use a pencil. You use a pencil and you'll sight down your full arm length and adjust your thumb and establish a unit of measure. And that unit of measure often is the head. And then you kind of work out how wide things are using that standard unit of measure. Arm's length out using your pencil. Different people do this different ways. Some people move beyond that fairly rapidly. I was one of the people doing it. I saw someone else do it sometimes. But if I start with the head, then that gives me my one standard unit of which then I can kind of work the rest of the form out. It really kind of is handy for foreshortening. If I stick my hand out to you, it is not full length, it's foreshortened. And that is one of the challenges in life drawing is foreshortening. My problem is when someone's reclining away from me or whatever, I just look like I'm drawing midgets. So it's a combination of exaggerating the size and foreshortening the limbs. But that will come to you, but to some degree that measurement can help you determine how much you have to foreshorten those limbs. So in this case, there was some artists that were extremely skilled. I know the guy that I knew had been doing it for quite a long time and his work was really good. And then one of the guys was doing gouache and amazing gouache paintings. So there's a full range of skill sets there. And the one thing to note is that if you go, no one's going to care. No one is going to care how bad your drawings are, and you don't have to share them with anybody. So don't let that hold you back. For me, the one thing that I am working on in these times where I basically suck is kind of getting the proportions right. That's where I kind of usually find that I miss is I get the proportions wrong and then the body looks wrong, out of balance and just not right. And so using that standard unit, but just getting an intuitive feel for the sizes and shapes. And that's why doing all these poses is really helpful in working that all out. This is just one of the reasons that keep drawing me back to that life drawing is working on visually seeing that and putting that onto paper, 3D to 2D. And I know it's good for me, and I do recommend for other people, if you have the option to do life drawing, no matter what your medium is, life drawing can really help you with the visual aspect of translation of 3D to 2D. The human form, as I've talked about earlier, is very hard to draw because we are so in tune with it, and we see any minor differences or mistakes within proportion or the shape, size of the body, so forth. And so to me, if you can get that down, everything else becomes easy, kind of as I said earlier. So if you can, I do recommend trying life drawing. So I kind of titled this Doing Hard Things, and to me, life drawing is a hard thing. And I think for artists, we shouldn't shy away from those hard things. It's really easy for an artist to fall into their comfort zone. They draw a certain thing or a certain way, and they just keep doing that because that's comfortable. And comfortable makes it enjoyable, but I think it's important at times to push yourself into harder things. I think when you do those harder things, it is a growth thing, and science backs this up. So one of the things is as you do something hard, you generally feel a level of frustration. That frustration is actually your brain hitting its bandwidth of new things it's trying to process and learn. So when you do something like life drawing, there's all kinds of new things that are happening. You're processing a whole bunch of new visual information. You're dealing with the whatever medium you're working with, the new motor skills. You're processing 2D or 3D to 2D, a whole bunch of things all at once. And so that as your brain hits that bandwidth of how much it can learn at one time, you'll start getting that sense of frustration. So that is actually a good thing. It means your brain is working and your brain is learning. And what's going to happen is it kind of dices up all these new skill sets that you're learning. It will, as it starts to master parts of it, you're going to find that frustration level coming down, and then the comfort of doing that thing will increase, and so will what you're doing, the quality of what you're doing. You're going to increase in your ability to do that thing. So in this case, it's life drawing, but as I've implied several times, is I believe that will translate into all your drawing. So if you like drawing cars or painting trees or landscapes or whatever, all these skill sets are going to translate to all those other things, improving your ability to render across many mediums and many subject matters. Okay, so I want to leave you with some tips if you decide to do this, life drawing, which I'm encouraging you to do life drawing. The first thing is you're going to need to find where sessions are happening in your city or town. I would generally start at an art supply store and see, sometimes they'll have a clipboard, or the employees there might know of life drawing sessions that are going on. You can also check your library. You can check art spaces. If you have a local museum, that might be a good place to check. Community centers, or if you have schools in town, such as universities and so forth, you might check there. A lot of medium to large size towns generally have at least one session going. I live in Reno, Nevada, and I know of at least 3 that are generally going during different times during the week. So a lot of opportunity, and I'm pretty sure you can find some. If you can't, there are resources online that can kind of help you. There are websites that you can kind of set pose durations, and it will show you pictures, and you can work from them. There is also, you can work from mannequins, which isn't ideal, but if you're really hard pressed, that is an option too. And if your town doesn't have any, you might look into starting one if you can find some space that the people will let you use, and you can do that. It generally has to be somewhat private. Finding models is a talent. I've not done it, but I have friends who have done it. So that's another option. So once you've decided you're going to do this, you want to decide on what medium you're going to do your life drawing in. And there's a lot of appropriate mediums. You can work in graphite and charcoal and carbon and pen and ink, markers. You just name it. Most things you can do, as I said, one guy was doing gouache, you can do watercolors. Some are easier than others. And so I would definitely, if you're new to life drawing, and especially if you're new to art, I think I would recommend starting off with graphite. Graphite is easy. Most people have some experience with it. It's erasable, which in the shorter poses, you're not going to have time to erase, but it does allow you to work with something that's familiar and easy and so forth. And then as you get that down, you may decide to work with something like charcoal, which has much more depth and blackness to it, and different options. A lot of people explore a lot. So part of the life drawing is this opportunity to try new mediums. So take advantage of that. So whatever medium you're going to choose, you're going to want to make sure you have all your tools with you. So if you're doing graphite, you're going to need a sharpener most likely. You may need an eraser. You might want a smudge tool. Any number of other tools that you like with your medium, you're going to want to have, because you can't be sure that the art space is necessarily going to have those tools. The other thing to be aware of is, like I like the small M&R sharpeners, but I have been to life drawing sessions that don't allow anything messy. So if your sharpener doesn't have a catch, they don't want you using that. So you may just back yourself up with less messy options if you go to these, until you figure out your session and what they allow and what they'll allow you to do. So you will also want to figure out what surface you're going to use, what paper you're going to use for your life drawing. My recommendation is you're going to use the cheapest thing that will stand up to your technique. So if you're working in graphite, you can use newsprint or you can use sketch paper. You generally don't want to use an expensive paper because you want to feel free to be able to just be expressive and large and draw and play, and not feeling like you're drawing anything nice. And keep in mind, you probably are not going to want to keep most of this work. It's, you probably keep some of it for posterity and know that, hey, look how much I've improved, kind of thing. But for the most part, you're probably going to recycle a lot of this. It's just an exercise to get better at what you're doing, and you're not making art here. So as far as sizes, you generally want a fair amount of space to work on. 18 by 24 is a traditional kind of good size to work on. It gives you an opportunity to work freely and loosely, and you're not going to be confined making little hands and feet that are really hard to draw. You want to have enough room to really be able to play and be loose and draw. And if you're too small, it can be really challenging unless you are a small drawing kind of person. But as you're learning, often larger is better. I would advocate checking, if you can, with the space beforehand, or the first time you go, maybe being a little conservative. So I think the smallest size I would recommend would probably be like 11 by 14, which is about that size. And then again, a traditional size, although it's really large, is the 18 by 24, which is like that big. It's big. It gives you a ton of space to go crazy on. And that's a good thing. Don't go too small. But I think the tendency is a small sketchbook or something, and that you'll probably find that you won't do your best work and learn. You want to have the ability to really make curves and gestures and be large. Another fun thing is actually this pad here. This is actually a tone paper. And I think earlier I showed you some drawings on a tone paper. The fun thing, like this example drawing on the cover of it, is you can use darks to create shadows and highlights. And this is another exercise that really can be helpful. Often when you're working on a white paper, you're just pushing your darks back. And so you're creating shadows, and then the paper becomes the highlight. You do lights for midtones, but in this case, the paper is a midtone, and so you can just concentrate on your shadows and your highlights, and that's a great option too for doing life drawing. B paper that I showed you a second ago they call it a brown recycled rough sketch, and that stuff is a lot of fun. Has a nice texture to it, and you can use graphite or charcoal or carbon pencils and a variety of other things. Get yourself a nice white colored pencil or a white chalk pencil and create your highlights with that. Another really necessary tool, and if this is your first time, I'd recommend bringing one, and I guarantee it would probably be a good thing to have, and that's a drawing board. I have a big one that will hold that large 18 by 24 pad. It has clips. It's like a big clipboard, basically. Most art supply stores and craft stores will sell these, and they come in handy. There's going to be different options, and if you can find out anything about your space, it's good to know if they provide anything. Usually they'll provide at least a chair, and so with a drawing board, you can set this up and hold it and draw on it on your lap. If they provide horses, which will hold a drawing board and you straddle it and you draw that way, that's good. Sometimes they will provide easels, or people make some fairly inexpensive aluminum easels. I'll put a picture of one so you can see one of those. They're generally lightweight and easy, and they'll hold a drawing board with a pad of paper in it. Some people like to stand at their work, and so having an easel is a good thing. Figuring out how you're going to draw there is going to be an important thing, and the first time you go, again, be kind of prepared for whatever. I went to this one and it was my first time there, and I just had a small bag that had my pencils and a couple of my tools that I needed, and I brought a small drawing board and a fairly small pad of paper. But once you figure it out, again, larger kind of is better. It just allows you to draw freer. You're often going to want to put multiple drawings on a page, especially as you go through those faster poses. You want to be able to go through, which brings up another point. When you get there and I recommend trying to get there early for two reasons. One is some places will shut the door and not allow people in once they've started the session until there's a break. So if you're late, you may have to wait till past the 2-minute poses to be allowed to come in. They don't want the disruption of someone coming in and setting up during a pose. So get there a little bit early. If this is your first session, if you get there a little bit early and can talk to people and find out the norms and the way things work there, is a good thing. And then another reason to get there early is to get a little set up. The first poses, those 1-minute poses, some people do 30-second poses, can be really fast, and they don't often give you a whole lot of time between the poses to kind of get organized. So you want to have your pencils and erasers and anything you're going to need set out, ready to use, however you're going to do that. So most of the life drawing sessions that I've been to generally charge between $10 and $20 for the session, and they want cash. This session I went to took Venmo, but it's a good idea to bring cash. Sometimes it's good to tip the model, although some groups give pretty much all the money to the model. So when you have a larger group, they usually do okay, but if not, it might be nice to tip the model, or if you ask for a specific pose and they do that, would be another reason to tip the model. But just plan on $10 to $20 as a usual. I've seen them go over that, but usually there's some instruction involved. And that's another point, is keep in mind that these drawing sessions typically aren't teacher-led. There's no one going to be there teaching you anything. This is just an opportunity you to get access to a model, to work on your life drawing. You'll want to get some idea of what you're trying to achieve prior. People are really helpful, and there's usually a leader, and then there's some other people that have a lot of talent, and they may offer to give you help or suggestions or answer questions and things like that. But don't go there with the intent that you're going to be taught life drawing. That's not what this gig is. It's mainly an opportunity for you to draw and explore and do your own thing. With that said, again, there's a tremendous amount of information right here in YouTube on life drawing, figure drawing, etc. There's also books that will give you some ideas on how to work out proportions and size, and how you flesh out your gesture drawings, whether you use forms. Some people use rectangles, some people use funny spheres, and different things. And you need to find the thing that works for you, and online's the best, but again, there are books that will help you out a lot. So don't plan on being taught. That's just what I'm trying to say. So I hope I gave you some encouragement to try this out. It's really a great growth opportunity, and it's fun. I realize the first time you do it, you're probably going to suffer from some of that frustration of learning something new, but get in there, dive into it, enjoy it. Don't be shy. No one is going to care how bad your drawings are going to be. And in this case, like this last session I was at, some people put their stuff out on the table. I chose not to because I suck. And no one said anything. No one cares. So it's a good place to go and enjoy. Don't be shy. After all, you're not the one going to take your clothes off. So keep that in mind. So I would highly recommend it. So if you can find a life drawing session, I'd recommend you go. How about all of you? Have any of you done life drawing? If you have, let us know in the comments below. How did it go? Do you have recommendations? Did you enjoy it? Did it improve your drawing? Share with the community. It's a great place. Comments below. And while you're down there, if you don't mind giving us a like and a subscribe, that helps out the channel a whole lot. Now go make some art.